My name is Steve Belmain. I'm a professor of ecology at the Natural Resources Institute at the University of Greenwich, and I work on rats and the problems that they cause for people, both in terms of health and disease issues as well as in agricultural production. Rats, we all know, are pests, and we have a lot of problems with them. We're often quite afraid of them, and I think there are a lot of myths around our culture in rats. You know, we learn a lot about rats through television programs and cartoons and stories when we are growing up, and I think that sort of colors the way we believe rats are really super clever, and of course they are smart, but I think one of the problems is we think they're often too smart, too clever to control, and that it's impossible to do anything about them. So there's a lot of stories around the world about rats and how they have these mythical abilities. For example, one you hear about is how all the tails of the rats get tangled up together, and then when they get these into these big masses, and you sometimes see pictures on the news where you see all these tangled rats together, and I really don't believe that happens, and the evidence suggests that it's probably a manufactured type of myth. There's a lot of good stories around rats, which I don't think we often hear enough about. So we tend to think again about their fear and being a pest, but actually if you consider the benefits they've had to society in terms of medical research and how many rats and mice are used in laboratories to test medicines and all our drugs and things that we have there, you know, they've been vital to a lot of that research. Whether you agree with the use of those animals or not, I think we still have to recognize that they have been invaluable in a lot of medical research. There are other programs around the world. Some people may have heard of the Hero Rat program or the Apopo program, which is about using African pouched rats to detect landmines. So they go around and they use their acute sense of smell to smell out the TNT in the bombs, and they can tell their owners, the people, when they smell this in the ground. They're also being used to detect tuberculosis, so TB, particularly in Tanzania. They have a huge program where they're using, again, their smell to smell out the bacteria in patients' sputum samples. And they're even thinking now of using them to detect coronavirus and using them to find people trapped in collapsed buildings. So when you have earthquakes or war and people are stuck down in the rubble, they're going to be able to train the rodents to go hunt and find those people and help get them out of their situation. The fear of rats is quite valid. I think that's, you know, why again we have this sort of innate aversion to them. I mean, they can transmit more than 60 different diseases. Some of these diseases are really serious. We all have heard about the plague. The plague is still out there. We don't have a problem with it here, but in many parts of the world it's still a problem, killing hundreds of people, thousands of people sometimes. There are other scary diseases like Lassa fever, which is causing huge outbreaks in West Africa. And then of course there are many chronic endemic diseases which we may not always think about, but for example Salmonella, which is sort of a gastroenteric type disease. Rodents are of course involved in the transmission of that in the wild and giving that over to our domestic animals and our livestock production, where a lot of that salmonella is probably being spread by rodents. There are a lot of people who are absolute fans of rodents. There is a huge industry around having rodents as pets. You can buy them in shops, and a lot of people love them because they are social animals. There's a lot of affection that can be given by a rodent because they are a social animal. And I think, you know, again, just trying to understand more about rodents I think is really important, not just because of their scary factors, but because they are very interesting, fascinating creatures. I mean, as a scientist, I'm trying to control them and manage their pest populations, but I also have enormous respect for them and see them as an important part of the world. They're doing many important things in the environment in terms of you know, food webs and food chains and things like that, and so we really should admire their ability and their diversity across the world.